For some more analysis on this election, I'd like to welcome Mathieu Doré, the Director of Polling for Ipsos here in Paris.
Good evening.
It looks like we're opening up a new phase in French politics here, potential coalition building, at least compromise for a president who is used to governing with a fairly free hand. What do you see as some of the potential outcomes for Macron in the National Assembly?
There are many potential outcomes, but the most likely for the moment is that he will clearly analyze the new balance of political forces, probably understand that contrary to the interpretation he seemed to give to the first round, and including to the presidential election, France is actually moving to the right, not so much to the left. Actually, the conjunct numbers of seats for left-wing parliamentarians will be one of the lowest in history. Not the lowest because it was in 1993, but it is basically as low as it was when Jacques Chirac was re-elected against Marine Le Pen's father, for example. And it was a particularly bad year for the Socialist Party. So I would say, of course, it's not as disastrous as the comments say, for the mere reason that actually Ensemble is still clearly ahead, actually even slightly. Its advance is actually increasing somewhat beyond 230. This is far too short for an overall majority, but it puts heavy pressure on the Republicans because basically they will be held responsible for the blockade. If there is one. And they can't unite on a solution to this dilemma. We know that it is a conundrum, and actually their leader has been explicit in his rejection of the debate, because actually the more he denies and the more he says they are in the opposition, the more he acknowledges that they want to negotiate something. Okay. At least internally, there are tensions. I mean, for example, the liberals in Germany, they systematically say they wanted to govern with CDU, and they were very often penalized by this useful vote against them. And when they were not clear about who they wanted to ally with, just like at the last election, they did better. And in the end, went into government. So I would say it's a good strategy, but the outcome is almost granted. And of course, if they opt for a messy solution of bill per bill support, it could open a very new page in France's political history. But there is some risk that it could not last very long because the European Commission, the European Central Bank, the German government will say, now you have to take action, and they won't be able to take action under these conditions. So if they want a lasting mandate as MPs, both the Ensemble MPs and the Republican MPs, they have to unite on a platform that is palatable to Olaf Scholz and the European Central Bank, because political instability is what put Italy in the dire situation it is currently in, while more intelligent coalition politics have made Germany a very stable economy and not only a very stable democracy. So I think they will look at it. But don't expect any statement anytime soon. It will take months, maybe even years before the political class adapt to this new reality. But in the end, the economy will be probably calling them back to reason, just like it did in Greece, in Italy, and anywhere in Europe when where there was too much instability and too much extremism.
Well, we were talking briefly earlier about the kind of political precedent that there may have been for this, or historical parallels to previous administrations. What kind of political precedents do you see for this sort of situation that we're seeing?
There is only
here?
one under the Fifth Republic, which is in 1988, when President Mitterrand was re-elected by a very sound majority, actually increasing his score, contrary to Macron, but did not carry an overall majority in his coattails. Some analysts said it was possibly partially on purpose, and so the same suspicion might go on on Macron, who has not been campaigning very adamantly. But
Indeed.
beyond that, the fact is that both of them were re-elected mostly by rejection of their opponents. And this is the most obvious commonality with the situation back then. But there is a major difference. At that time, the presidential majority garnered the number of MPs overall was the same, and they had 275. That is 40 plus more than Ensemble. But the Conservatives had 271. Mm-hmm. And this year, all oppositions are far, 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 far below this symbolic threshold of the 200 seats. If NUP had been able to carry more than 200 seats, then maybe the situation might have been different. What turns out to be the main surprise tonight is the excellent breakthrough, the extraordinary breakthrough of the National Rally, now tallying 90 seats. That is far ahead of the Conservatives and ahead of LFI, Jean-Luc Mélenchon's party. So what we know for sure is that they will not be very constructive, but they have no coalition culture at all. So you can't expect any unification of the oppositions, any anti-Macron coalition in parliament. That doesn't work. NUP and National Rally are completely incompatible on almost everything except criticizing the pension reform. So for the pension reform to pass, which is probably something that the European Commission and the European Central Bank in the long run will demand, because it is the only way France has to reduce its mounting public debt. Right. For a coalition to pass this reform, it will take a long time. It will take a lot of compromises and negotiations, but of course, that will probably be only possible if the Republicans decide that if they want to defeat the far right in the next presidential election, they have to become a government party again, and so to assume responsibilities that go with that.
Indeed. Mathieu Douaré, Director of Polling for Ipsos, I'm going to ask you to